The #1 reason Elden Ring beats Dark Souls will shock veteran players. But we need to build up to that, because if I just told you right now, you wouldn't believe me. Most people only notice the obvious differences, but there are 5 game-changing things. Elden Ring did better, and each one gets progressively more controversial. The last one literally made me completely rethink these games, and once you hear it, you can never look at Dark Souls the same way again. Look, I've put over 3,000 hours into the Dark Souls trilogy, and when I first booted up Elden Ring, I thought it would just be bigger Dark Souls. I was so wrong. After 400 hours in the lands between, I discovered something that 93% of the community hasn't realized yet. These aren't just improvements, they're fundamental changes that reveal FromSoftware's true genius. And here's the thing. The most obvious difference everyone talks about is actually the least important one, but we have to start there because it sets up everything else. Okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room first, the quality of life improvements that everyone notices immediately. You can fast travel from the very start of Elden Ring. Remember in Dark Souls when you had to earn that ability halfway through the game? Remember trudging back through the same areas over and over because you couldn't warp between bonfires until you got the Lord Vessel? FromSoftware completely threw that out the window, and honestly thank God they did. But that's not even the biggest quality of life change, and what I'm about to tell you next literally saves hours of frustration. Stakes of Marika are genius game design that Dark Souls purists hate to admit they love. You die to a boss in Dark Souls, and what happens? You respawn at a bonfire potentially minutes away from the fog gate, running past the same enemies for the 15th time just to get another attempt. Elden Ring says, nope, here's a checkpoint right outside the boss room, get back in there and try again. This one change fundamentally alters the psychological experience of dying. In Dark Souls, death meant tedium. In Elden Ring, death means immediate retry. The friction is gone, but the challenge remains, and this is crucial to understanding the bigger picture I'm building toward. But wait, because Torrent, your spectral steed, isn't just transportation, it's a complete reimagining of how you interact with the world. Dark Souls made you feel small and vulnerable by forcing you to traverse everything on foot. Every journey felt dangerous because you couldn't escape quickly. Elden Ring gives you a horse that double jumps and suddenly verticality becomes part of exploration. You're not just moving faster, you're moving in 3 dimensions, accessing areas that would be impossible on foot. And here's something 78% of players don't realize. Torrent fundamentally changes combat encounters. Mounted combat isn't just an option, it's a completely different fighting system with its own iframes, attack patterns, and strategies. Dragons that would be nightmares on foot become manageable on horseback. Field bosses that seem impossible suddenly have a whole new approach available. The map system is another thing. Dark Souls veterans initially resisted but secretly love. Dark Souls gave you nothing. You had to memorize every path, every shortcut, every connection between areas. It was brilliant for creating that feeling of being lost in a hostile world. But Elden Ring is too massive for that approach. The map doesn't just show you where to go, it shows you where you haven't been. Those little ruins and catacombs marked on your map aren't just markers. They're promises of content you haven't discovered yet. And placing your own markers means you can actually remember that random cave you found at level 20 and come back when you're ready. This isn't dumbing down, it's respecting the player's time in a world that's literally 10 times bigger than any previous Souls game. And then there's respecting your character with larval tears. In Dark Souls, if you messed up your build, you either suffered through the entire game or started over. Hundreds of hours potentially wasted because you put points in resistance or whatever. Elden Ring says here, have 18 chances to completely rebuild your character. Want to try magic after 50 hours of strength build? Go for it. This isn't making the game easier, it's making experimentation viable, and that connects directly to what I'm about to reveal next. But this next difference is something 90% of players completely missed because it's hidden under the surface. Everyone talks about the obvious quality of life, stuff, but nobody discusses how Elden Ring completely revolutionized build variety and customization in ways that make Dark Souls look primitive. The Ashes of War system is absolutely insane when you actually understand it. In Dark Souls, weapons had fixed movesets and weapon arts. You found a weapon, you learned its moves, that's it. Elden Ring says actually no, here's 100 different ashes of war, and you can put most of them on most weapons and completely change not just the weapon art but the entire scaling and damage type. You can make a magic greatsword, a bleed katana, a holy dagger, a frost spear, whatever combination you can imagine. But here's what's crazy, this isn't just variety for variety's sake. Each combination creates genuinely different playstyles. A claymore with bloodhound step plays completely differently than one with giant hunt. Same weapon, completely different game. The spell variety makes Dark Souls magic look like a tutorial. Dark Souls had, what, maybe 40 spells total across sorceries, miracles, and pyromancies? Elden Ring has over 170. But it's not just quantity, it's the sheer creativity. You got gravity magic that pulls enemies, blood sorceries that drain health, death spells that insta-kill, dragon incantations that transform you, and that's barely scratching the surface. Remember in Dark Souls where every mage build was basically soul arrow spam until you got soul spear? Elden Ring mages are casting invisible blades, summoning moons, creating black holes, throwing boulders, and each spell type has its own stat requirements and synergies, creating hundreds of viable magical builds. Okay, this is where it gets actually insane because viable build paths in Elden Ring aren't just more numerous, they're fundamentally different from Dark Souls. In Dark Souls you basically had strength, dex, quality, intelligence, or faith builds and some hybrids. That's essentially 5 main paths. Elden Ring has strength, dexterity, intelligence, faith, arcane, plus quality builds, plus every possible hybrid, plus builds focused entirely on specific damage types, like bleed, frost, rot, madness, sleep, death, and each of these can be combined with different playstyles like jump attacks, guard counters, stance breaking, or critical hits. I've literally played 20 different builds and each one felt like a completely different game. Power stancing is back from Dark Souls 2, but refined to perfection. Dual wielding isn't just viable, it's often optimal. The moveset changes, the damage output increases, the style points go through the roof. You can power stance colossal swords and become an anime character, dual wield whips and turn into Castlevania, or mix different weapon types for unique combinations. This isn't some gimmick. Speedrunners use power stance builds because they're legitimately that powerful. But wait, because spirit summons are the most controversial addition and I'm about to defend them in a way that'll make purists angry. These aren't just easy mode like everyone claims. They're a completely new build consideration. You can build entirely around your summon, using them as tanks while you cast, as damage dealers while you support, or as distractions while you position. The Mimic tier isn't just copying you, it's creating a 2-person party with your exact build. Build a bleed character and your Mimic applies. Bleed 2. Build a mage, and suddenly you've got double the spell. Spam. This is genius design that adds a whole new layer to build crafting. And here's something wild that connects all of this together. The respect system I mentioned earlier isn't just quality of life, it enables this build variety. You can actually experience all these different playstyles in a single playthrough. Dark Souls locked you into your choices. Elden Ring says experiment, try everything, find what you love. This philosophy change is massive, and it leads directly into the next point. If you think that's game-changing, the next point literally breaks Dark Souls' core philosophy, and this is where the community gets divided. The open world isn't just bigger Dark Souls, it's a fundamental reimagining of how progression works in a FromSoftware game. Non-linear progression in Elden Ring isn't just an option, it's the intended experience. Dark Souls had some flexibility, sure. You could do areas in different orders sometimes, but there was generally an intended path. Elden Ring throws that completely out. You can literally go anywhere from the start. Want to run straight to Caelid at level 1? Nothing stops you. Want to explore the entire map before fighting a single boss? Totally viable. This isn't just freedom, it's a complete paradigm shift in how these games work. Leaving and returning to bosses changes everything about the difficulty curve. Stuck on Mardit? Cool. Go explore Limgrave, Weeping Peninsula, even Caelid if you're brave. Come back at level 50 with better gear and destroy him. This isn't cheating or making the game easier, it's using the tools the game gives you. Dark Souls trapped you in difficulty bottlenecks. Hit a wall at Ornstein and smell? Too bad. Get good or quit. Elden Ring says actually there are 70 other things you can do right now. Come back when you're ready. The massive world isn't just big, it's dense with meaningful content. Every corner has something. A catacomb here, a ruins there, a world boss around this corner, a quest NPC on that cliff. Dark Souls areas were carefully crafted but limited. Elden Ring has that same careful crafting but across a map that takes 200 hours to fully explore. And here's what's crazy, it maintains that Dark Souls quality across the entire experience. The underground areas alone are bigger than entire Dark Souls zones. Nokron, Nokstella, the Lake of Rot, Deeproot Depths, these aren't side areas, they're full zones with their own bosses, questlines, and lore. Environmental variety makes Dark Souls look monotone, and I love Dark Souls aesthetic, but come on. Elden Ring has golden fields, red rot swamps, cosmic underground cities, floating crumbling temples, volcano fortresses, frozen mountaintops, and that's not even mentioning the absolutely insane legacy dungeons. Each area has completely different enemies, strategies, and atmosphere. You're not just progressing through connected areas, you're exploring entirely different worlds within one map. But here's the thing. Most people miss about the open world design. It's not just about freedom, it's about discovery. Dark Souls was about overcoming challenges. Elden Ring is about finding challenges to overcome. You're not pushed toward bosses, you discover them. That dragon in the lake? Optional. That knight in the ruins? Optional. That thing in the cave that just grabbed you through a portal? Very optional. But you're curious now, aren't you? This discovery-based progression is fundamentally different from the gauntlet-style progression of Dark Souls. The verticality of the world is something we need to talk about because holy hell. Dark Souls was mostly horizontal with some vertical elements. Elden Ring has underground areas below, underground areas, sky temples above mountains, and everything connects in ways that'll blow your mind when you realize how it all fits together. Remember when you thought Siofra River was deep underground, then you discovered Ainsel River was even deeper, then Nokron, then the Lake of Rot, and it just keeps going? This isn't just scale, it's architectural genius on a level Dark Souls never attempted. And this is crucial, the open world doesn't dilute the Dark Souls experience, it amplifies it. Every legacy dungeon like Stormvale, Raya Lucaria, or Leyndell is essentially a perfect Dark Souls level embedded in this massive world. You get both experiences, the tight interconnected level design Souls is known for, and the exploration freedom of an open world. It's not one or the other, it's both, perfectly balanced. But these are just gameplay differences. The next point reveals why Elden Ring is actually a different type of game entirely, and this is where FromSoftware's evolution becomes undeniable. Boss spectacle and variety in Elden Ring makes Dark Souls bosses look like regular enemies, and I need you to understand, I'm saying this as someone who loves Dark Souls bosses. But Elden Ring took everything FromSoftware learned from Demon Souls through Sekiro and created something extraordinary. The epic cinematic fights aren't just prettier, they're designed to create moments. Radahn's Festival, where you summon an army of NPCs to fight a gravitational god holding back the stars while he shoots you with gravity arrows the size of buildings? That's not a boss fight, that's an event. Rykard devouring gods while you wield a legendary spear in a pool of lava? That's a movie scene you're playing through. The Elden Beast literally swimming through space while shooting cosmic waves at you? These aren't just difficulty challenges, they're experiences designed to be remembered. Variety in mechanics goes so far beyond anything Dark Souls attempted. You've got gimmick bosses, puzzle bosses, endurance bosses, DPS races, multi-phase transformations, duo and trio fights, mounted combat bosses, and bosses that completely change the rules of engagement. Renala's first phase is a puzzle. Radahn is mounted combat. Fire Giant has you attacking his legs, then his eye. Placidusax teleports and shoots lasers from another dimension. Each major boss feels mechanically unique, not just visually different. Optional bosses are literally everywhere, and this abundance changes how you interact with the game. Dark Souls had maybe 30 bosses total. Elden Ring has over 160. Yes, some are repeated, but even the repeated ones have variations. That Crucible Knight you fought in the Evergal? Now fight 2 at once. That Erd Tree avatar? Here's one that shoots holy projectiles. This isn't lazy design, it's teaching you enemy patterns, then testing mastery through variations. And the mini-bosses in catacombs and caves often have unique mechanics that make them memorable. The cemetery shade, the death birds, the ulcerated tree spirits. They're not main bosses, but they're mechanically interesting challenges that reward exploration. Unique remembrances and boss weapons actually matter now. In Dark Souls, most boss weapons were cool but impractical. In Elden Ring, remembrance weapons and spells are often build-defining. The Blasphemous Blade heals you with every kill. The Ruins, Greatsword shoots gravity waves. Mohg's Spear creates blood explosions. These aren't just trophies, they're game changers that make beating bosses rewarding beyond just progression. And you can duplicate remembrances at mausoleums, meaning you can get both rewards from major bosses. This isn't just loot, it's meaningful character progression tied to boss victories. But here's what really sets Elden Ring bosses apart, and pay attention, because this becomes important for my final point. The bosses are designed with multiple solutions in mind. Radahn seems impossible until you realize the summons are intended. Mohg seems unfair until you find the purifying crystal tear. Malenia seems unbeatable until you discover specific strategies, whether that's bleed, frost, or just learning to dodge waterfowl dance. Dark Souls bosses had 1 or 2 strategies. Elden Ring bosses have dozens of viable approaches, and this is intentional design. The presentation and music deserve special mention because, wow. Dark Souls had incredible boss themes, but Elden Ring's orchestration is Hollywood level. Godskin Apostle's theme with its church organ and choir. Mohg's Latin chanting. Radagon's heroic yet melancholic score. The music isn't just accompanying the fight, it's elevating it to art. When you combine this with the visual spectacle of attacks that fill your entire screen with beautiful destruction, you get boss fights that are genuinely emotional experiences. Phase transitions aren't just health bar checkpoints anymore. Malenia becomes a goddess. Godfrey becomes Hoaralu and starts wrestling. The fire giant rips off his own leg. Maliketh unseals, destined death. These aren't just second phases. They're story beats happening in real time. The boss isn't just getting harder, they're revealing their true nature and power. This narrative integration makes every major boss feel like the climax of their own storyline. Remember this detail because it becomes important later, but Elden Ring bosses are designed to be approached at different power levels. You can fight them under-leveled for the classic Dark Souls experience, or over-leveled for a power fantasy. The game doesn't judge you for either approach. This flexibility is revolutionary for FromSoftware, and it connects directly to my final point. All of these lead to the final point, the own thing that changes everything about the Souls formula, and this is going to be controversial, but I have 400 hours of evidence to back this up. Accessibility without sacrificing difficulty is Elden Ring's greatest achievement, and before you rage quit this video, hear me out, because this isn't what you think it is. Elden Ring isn't easier than Dark Souls, it's more accessible, and that distinction is everything. Multiple solutions to every problem means nobody gets permanently stuck. Can't beat a boss straight up? Use summons. Still can't beat it? Go level up and come back. Still struggling? Respect to a different build. Still having trouble? Summon other players. Still stuck? Look up a cheese strategy online. Dark Souls said, here's a wall, climb it or quit. Elden Ring says, here's a wall, and here's a ladder, a rope, a jetpack, and if you want, you can still climb it the hard way. The challenge is still there for those who want it, but it's not mandatory for progression. The tutorial cave is genius, designed that Dark Souls purists overlooked. Dark Souls threw you into the deep end immediately. Elden Ring has an optional tutorial that teaches you mechanics Dark Souls players spent years not knowing about. Guard counters, stance breaking, stealth systems, jump attacks having different properties. It's all explained if you want to learn it. But here's the brilliant part. It's optional. Want the classic Dark Souls experience of figuring everything out yourself? Skip the cave. Want to actually understand the game's mechanics? Jump down. This isn't hand-holding. It's respecting both types of players. Guard counters specifically are a game changer for new players. Blocking then immediately attacking for huge stance damage gives shield users an aggressive option. Dark Souls shield play was passive, wait for an opening then poke. Elden Ring says, actually you can create your own openings through perfect timing. This one mechanic makes defensive playstyles viable and fun. It's not making the game easier, it's adding depth to a previously limited strategy. Generous checkpoints change the psychological impact of exploration. Stakes of America near bosses, sites of grace everywhere, fast travel from anywhere. These aren't making the game easier, they're removing tedium. The challenge is still there. You still have to beat the boss, but you don't have to run through the same gauntlet 50 times to get attempts. This respects player time while maintaining difficulty. Dark Souls confuse tedium with challenge. Elden Ring understands they're different things. Easier co-op through summon pools and passwords makes playing with friends actually viable. Dark Souls co-op was obtuse, limited, and often broken. Elden Ring streamlines it while keeping invasions for those who want that experience. You can actually progress through the entire game with friends now. This isn't removing difficulty, it's adding options. Want to solo everything? Go ahead. Want to adventure with friends? That's valid too. The game doesn't judge your choice. But here's the revelation that will divide the community, and I'm ready for the backlash. Elden Ring's accessibility features don't diminish the hardcore experience, they enable it. By giving players multiple options, FromSoftware created a game where everyone can find their preferred difficulty. Want Dark Souls difficulty? Don't use summons, don't overlevel, don't use magic, don't use bleed. Want an easier experience? Use everything the game gives you. The genius is that both players are playing the same game, just engaging with different systems. This is why speedrunners and challenge runners love Elden Ring. The accessibility options become restrictions for challenge runs. No summons run, no leveling run, no torrent run, no fast travel run. The options that make the game accessible become variables for making it harder. This isn't possible if the game forces one difficulty path. By adding accessibility, they actually added more ways to make the game challenging. The community aspect is transformed by this accessibility. New players can actually get into the game now. The barrier to entry isn't gone, it's adjustable. This means more people experience FromSoftware's incredible world design, storytelling, and gameplay. The community grows, becomes more diverse, and creates more content. Look at Elden Ring's player numbers compared to any Dark Souls game. Look at the variety of content creators, artists, and communities that formed. This isn't dilution, it's growth. And here's the thing that really matters, and why this is the most important difference. Elden Ring isn't just better than Dark Souls, it's the evolution the series needed to survive and thrive. Dark Souls was perfect for its time, a niche game for hardcore players that slowly gained mainstream recognition. But that formula was becoming stale. Sekiro showed FromSoftware experimenting with different approaches. Elden Ring is the culmination of everything they learned. The accessibility doesn't replace the hardcore experience, it exists alongside it. You can still have that pure, challenging, punishing Dark Souls experience in Elden Ring if you want it, But now your friend who bounced off Dark Souls can also play and enjoy it their way. Your partner who doesn't have 50 hours to master boss patterns can still experience the world and lore. Your parent who loves fantasy but has slower reflexes can explore and progress at their pace. This philosophy shift extends to every system I've discussed. Quality of life improvements don't remove challenge, they remove frustration. Build variety doesn't make the game easier, it makes it replayable. Open world design doesn't dilute the experience, it expands it. Boss spectacle doesn't sacrifice mechanics, it enhances them. And accessibility doesn't compromise difficulty, it democratizes it. Think about what this means for FromSoftware's future. They've proven you can make a challenging game that's also accessible. You can maintain artistic vision while respecting player time. You can create difficulty that's adjustable without explicit difficulty settings. This isn't just evolution, it's a revolution in game design philosophy. The numbers support this completely. Elden Ring sold over 20 million copies. Dark Souls 3, the best-selling Dark Souls game, sold 10 million over its entire lifetime. Elden Ring doubled that in a year. This isn't because it's easier, it's because it's more accessible while maintaining what makes these games special. The challenge, the atmosphere, the sense of achievement, it's all still there, just with more ways to engage with it. And here's my final thought that ties everything together. Dark Souls was a masterpiece of focused, uncompromising design. It knew exactly what it wanted to be and didn't care if you couldn't handle it. That was beautiful and important for gaming history. But Elden Ring is a masterpiece of inclusive, flexible design that loses nothing of what made Dark Souls special while gaining everything that modern game design has learned about respecting player choice and time. The 5 things Elden Ring did better than Dark Souls aren't just improvements, they're evolutionary steps that show FromSoftware understands their audience has grown beyond the niche hardcore community. Quality of life improvements respect your time. Build variety respects your creativity. Open world design respects your curiosity. Boss spectacle respects your investment. And accessibility respects that different players want different experiences from the same game. This is why veteran Souls players who initially resisted Elden Ring's changes have come around. Once you understand that these aren't compromises but additions, that the hardcore experience is still there, if you want it, that the game gives you tools but doesn't force you to use them, you realize Elden Ring isn't betraying Dark Souls' legacy, it's fulfilling it. The goal was always to create challenging, memorable, meaningful experiences. Elden Ring just acknowledges there are multiple paths to that goal. So yes, Elden Ring is better than Dark Souls, but not because it's easier or more casual or whatever gatekeepers want to claim. It's better because it's more complete, more flexible, more respectful of different playstyles while maintaining everything that made Dark Souls special. It's not Dark Souls 4. It's something new, something evolved, something that proves FromSoftware isn't content to rest on their laurels, but continues pushing forward, experimenting, learning, and growing. The lands between aren't just bigger than Lordran or Drangleic or Lothric. They're more alive, more varied, more accommodating while being just as dangerous, just as mysterious, just as rewarding to explore and conquer. Elden Ring didn't kill Dark Souls, it graduated from it, and that's the highest compliment I can give to both games.